Today, we're talking about failure. And no, this is not an autobiographical episode. Instead, we're talking about the science of failure. Hi there, everyone. It's Jeff again, and this is lesson number 635 of Plain English on Thursday, December 21st, 2023. If you celebrate Christmas, I hope you've gotten your shopping done. By the time you hear this, I'll be in Chicago catching up with JR, the producer, making plans, strategizing, plotting for 2024. Hopefully, 2024 will be full of success for us, for you, but it will also have some failures, as every year does. We are only human. And in today's story, we are going to talk about failure, the science of mistakes and failure. We're going to put failures into 6 categories, ranging from blameworthy to virtuous. And by knowing and naming the types of failure, we can understand our own shortcomings better. In the second half of the lesson, we'll talk about the expression root cause, and we have a song of the week. Let's get started. Often, when something goes wrong, our first instinct is to look for someone or something to blame. This didn't go well. Whose fault is it? Who can we blame? That might not always be the best way to look at it. And even when you do want to find the root cause of a failure, it might not be a person. It could be a system instead. To properly address and correct mistakes and failures, it helps to categorize them. I'm reading a book now called Right Kind of Wrong: The Science of Failing Well by Amy Edmondson, a Harvard professor. And in the book, she presents 6 kinds of failure and puts them on a spectrum. On one side are blameworthy failures, things that are clearly someone's fault, while on the other end are virtuous failures, failures that are a good thing. What kind of failure could be virtuous? Let's walk through them one at a time, and you'll see. The first kind of failure is sabotage. Sabotage is when someone purposely does something wrong or does something that is clearly dangerous or reckless. One example the author gives is someone who soaks a rag in lighter fluid and sets a house on fire. This is a purposeful attempt to cause damage. Or think of an airline pilot that goes to work drunk. This is a reckless act. Both are examples of sabotage, the most blameworthy type of failure. You can point the finger at one person and assign blame. The next type of failure is inattention. Picture a driver on the highway. He looks away from the road to answer a text or browse the web, and he crashes into another car and injures another driver. This is inattention. The driver should have prevented the crash, but he didn't because he wasn't paying attention. In this case, the driver deserves some blame. His decision led to a bad outcome, even though he didn't mean it. Inability is the third type of failure. Inability means a person fails at something because he or she simply doesn't have the skills or the ability to succeed. In the early days of plain English, I did everything on the website myself. This was a case study in the inability type of failure. I am not a computer programmer. And so I was trying to do things that I simply didn't have the ability to do. The website was slow, it would crash, things wouldn't work. I was paying attention, I just didn't have the skills, the ability to do the job. The next type of failure is a task challenge. This means that someone is attempting something that is very difficult, and you can't expect success every time. In the early days of ChatGPT, for example, the program would produce some really weird stuff. It even tried to convince a reporter to divorce his wife. But think about this for a second. Yes, this was a failure. The program didn't produce the content that the creators intended. But cut them some slack. Making an artificial intelligence chatbot is hard. Training a computer to answer questions, it had never been done before, not like this. So yes, there were some failures, if only because the challenge was so hard. This is an example of a failure that is less blameworthy. You can't blame someone for failing at something so difficult. Next is uncertainty. The world is random and can't always be predicted. A company launches a new product. Will people like it? A company can do a lot of research and preparation, but the only way to know for sure is to try it and find out. A friend sets you up on a blind date. Will the date go well? If it doesn't go well, that can feel like a failure, but it's a failure because the world is random and uncertain. It wasn't a mistake to launch the product. It wasn't a mistake to go on the date. And then the final type of failure is experimentation. You recognize that you must fail on the way to success. The only way to get success is by trying a lot of things that won't work out. And that kind of failure is praiseworthy. Think of scientific experiments. To develop a drug that treats a disease, hundreds of experiments have to fail before the researchers can land on the one that works. So when something goes wrong in life, as it definitely will, either for you or for the people around you, think about what kind of failure it was. Was it sabotage or inattention? Then maybe you do assign blame. Was it inability or just a hard task? In that case, maybe you need to adjust your approach or your expectations. But was the failure caused by the randomness of the universe? Or was it the result of experimentation? If it's one of those two, then maybe you deserve a pat on the back. So now I'm thinking about things that have gone wrong for me, and I'm trying to put them on the spectrum. This really does help think through challenges. It can be hard to find where to put a failure, though. Self-driving cars that crash. This is a great example. A self-driving car, if it ever really happens, would be an incredible feat for humanity. Clearly, there will be failures along the way. This is a task challenge mixed with uncertainty and experimentation. It's just a hard thing to do. But also, the companies have a responsibility to make sure that the self-driving cars aren't putting people in unnecessary danger. So if a self-driving car crashes and hurts, or God forbid, kills someone, is it because it just encountered a unique situation? Or did the company rush the car to the market? Did the company, like I think Tesla does, did the company advertise the car as self-driving when really it needed the driver's attention? Lots to think about. And hopefully you can think about it in English. By the way, the book one more time, Right Kind of Wrong by Amy Edmondson. I put a link to it in the transcript at plainenglish.com/635. Today's song of the week is Sweet Disposition by the Temper Trap. They are an Australian band. A person's disposition is their way of acting, their way of being. So a sweet disposition is like a sweet way of acting. The Temper Trap, Sweet Disposition, is the song of the week. Thank you, J.R. Root cause is a great expression. You'll use it when you're solving complicated problems. To understand this, you need to know the word root. The root is the part of a tree or a plant that's underground. You don't necessarily see it, but it's the base for the whole tree. You see where I'm going with this. The root cause of a problem, then, is the fundamental underlying reason or source behind the problem. Often, problems have a proximate cause and a root cause. The proximate cause, this isn't a common expression, but it's the correct word. The proximate cause is the thing you see, or the most obvious reason for a problem. But the root cause is the fundamental cause, the basis, the real source of the problem. And that might not always be obvious. Let's take a simple example. Imagine that it's 3:00 p.m. and you're exhausted. Why? Well, if you didn't sleep well the previous night, then that's the answer. You're tired because you didn't sleep enough. But is that the root cause? That's the most obvious answer. But is that the real source of the problem? Maybe the root cause of the problem is stress that keeps you awake at night. Maybe the root cause of the problem is sleep apnea, a condition that doesn't allow you to fully sleep on any night. If you have too much stress, or if you suffer from sleep apnea, then you won't solve your problem by going to bed earlier. So anytime you have a complicated problem, you want to look for the root cause. In today's story, we talked about multiple kinds of failure. When something goes wrong, it can be helpful to find the root cause of the failure. And to help us do that, the author, Amy Edmondson, created 6 types of failure to analyze. Let's say you have a business that delivers products to customers, and customers always get the products late. You could yell at the delivery driver, but is the driver the root cause of the problem? Is the driver the fundamental source of the problem? Maybe the driver is slacking off. But it's also possible, more likely actually, that the root cause is that you're not planning for traffic when you make delivery estimates. Or maybe the root cause is that you're giving each driver too many packages to deliver in a day. You see what I mean? For a while, I was fighting an unwinnable battle with customer support. It was with a technology company that I used, past tense, with plain English, and I keep having problems, and I get on the live chat. And without fail, the people on the live chat would do the bare minimum required to get me off the chat. Absolutely nobody was willing to even consider the root cause of a problem. And that's when I realized what kind of failure I was dealing with. It was an inability failure. The team I was using just didn't have the ability to get to the root cause of the problem. I shouldn't blame them. It's no use getting angry. They just operated a chat. So I switched to a provider with better customer service and the ability to identify root causes of problems. Oh, I forgot to mention, I was going to say this earlier, but this is the last new episode of the year. Everyone that works on Plain English, I tried to give them all a break by creating shorter lessons earlier this year, but they were like 100 words shorter than normal. Everyone on the Plain English team must have been shaking their heads thinking, this is what you call a break? So we are going to be off until after the new year. Our next new episode will be Monday, January 1st. We'll put something in your podcast feed next week, but the next full episode, the next lesson set, will be lesson 636 on Monday, January 1st, 2024. So congratulations on an amazing year. I am just always so proud of and inspired by all the great work you're doing, all the great progress you're making. Keep up the great work. We'll be back in 2024 better than ever for another year of English learning together. See you next year.